13 years ago, my mother died in my living room. She was only 26, and I was only 3. The doctor said that she died of natural causes, probably because they couldn't narrow it down to anything else. I don't remember this, because, like I said, I was 3. The only remnants of my mom were found in my dad's stories about her, and in the photos on the walls of my house, and in the painting of an angel that hangs above our mantelpiece. The painting wasn't done by my mom. In fact, according to my dad, it came out of nowhere.
She told me it was a family heirloom or something.
He said over dinner one day, with a scrunched forehead.
Passed down over generations. She said her mother gave it to her, and so on and so forth. Something about it being a family guardian angel, sent down generation by generation to protect whoever. So I suppose it should be yours now, shouldn't it?
The painting is in a gold frame, which stands out against the plainness that is the rest of my house. In it is an angel child with black curls.
Much like your mom's hair, actually,
my dad had said before, and a tilted head. They hold a shining golden staff in their hands and look down with a pitiful and understanding expression, like they're listening. And behind their head shines a circle made of golden leaf, stark against the silver sky. I think it's a beautiful painting personally, and I've always felt drawn to it, warmed by it. When I sit in the dark of my living room, kept awake by an assignment for school or by insomnia, I'll see the painting and maybe smile, relax, feel safe. It's stupid, really. I should probably be more unnerved by the fact that my mom died right before it on the carpet. My friends definitely never get the same sense of safety from the painting. In fact, they were always fairly certain that my house was haunted. Whenever they came over, they made fun of it.
It's seriously creepy,
laughed Sean one time, standing right before it and barking a laugh.
Did you get it from a charity shop or something?
Yeah, it's weird,
Bianca drawled, squinting at the painting from my sofa.
Is your dad really religious or something? Looks like Catholic propaganda.
I hadn't told them that it belonged to my mom. This situation was never severe enough to call for me to play the dead parent card. It's only Devon who knew that the painting was my mother's, and she's always the one to call out the others.
Oh my God, shut up,
she groaned as the others taunted me about the painting. She turned to me, then, with a pair of firefly eyes.
Don't listen to them, Shamira.
I'll be honest when I say that I didn't really like my friends. I was grateful for them, don't get me wrong. After all, they were like a safety blanket. I had never been the popular type in any way. I'm not very talented or good at anything. I have fun with art, but only for myself, and I pass my exams just barely. I'm not very pretty either with my bony, tall frame, enormous nose, and frizzy hair. And I'm introverted. A bit of a pushover, I'll admit. So I don't know how I wheedled my way into the popular kids friend group. I think Devon had something to do with it. Devon loving. Everything I'm not. Clear skin, white teeth, golden hair, golden eyes, and a golden future ahead. I know what people said about her, that she's mean, and I won't say that I never saw her poking and prodding, and laughing with cruel eyes. I won't say I've never heard her say things to people that turn my stomach. But it's difficult to concentrate on those moments when so often all I remember is her church bell laugh when I've said something funny, and her eyes when she looks at me. Almost adoring, if I imagine it. I think Sean and Bianca and Louise all think I wanted to be her, have everything she has. And I did want Devin, but not in the way they assumed I did. And for a long time, I thought that she could never feel like that for me. Because I'm Shamira, and she is Devin loving. Sure, she spoke to me like a person. She was kind and smiling, patient. She found me funny, built me up with compliments, touched my arm and back at every opportunity she found. And sometimes I'd catch her staring at me in class. I never dared to hope, even when she kept going out of her way to be around me. But it was difficult to deny by the time her 17th birthday party rolled around. She wasn't drunk, even though there was plenty of alcohol going around, pulled out of her parents' stash. The party raged in bright neon lights, full of more people than I had ever known. But in the dark of her room, she sat alone, like she was waiting for me. When I came in, Devin looked up and smiled.
You found me.
She said with a shrug. I shut the door behind me. She patted the bed beside her, and I took the invitation. She looked gorgeous, of course, wearing an off-the-shoulder dress, ruffled at the ends. Honey-colored hair rolled like waves down her back. Her eyes, a summer storm. I sat with the space between us, and she noticed but didn't mention it. Why aren't you downstairs? I asked, avoiding her eyes. It's your party. Devin shrugged.
I don't like parties.
I laughed, maybe because I didn't know what else to do. Then why are you having one? She shrugged again. Then she leaned to me a little and ran 2 fingers up and down my arm. I stared at the repeating pattern, each touch an electric shock.
I don't know.
Devin admitted quietly.
I don't even like most of the people here, but it's my 17th. That's a big deal. I have to show off. Even my parents thought so. They always have their opinion, but somehow couldn't even bother to be here. And everyone else is just here so they can take pictures and get drunk.
I dared myself to look at her face. Well, I'm here for you, I said. Devin smiled big. She looked me in the eye, pleading.
I know,
she said.
You're a good one, Shamira.
Any space I meant to put between us was forgotten. Devin filled all of it. She didn't move away, and neither did I. In fact, Devin loving leaned even closer and kissed me on the mouth. Her warm hands found my face and neck. I sat there, nearly frozen, because I found it all so hard to believe. Surely none of it was real. I wish now that it wasn't real. No matter the euphoria I felt in that whisper of a moment, it all came crashing down when the door opened.
Oh, what the hell?
Came a burly shout. I pulled away at the same time Devin did and turned to see angry light spilling through the open door. The shadow of a tall football player from school blocked it, and behind him crowded even more shocked faces, all gasping and whispering. I didn't even turn in time to see Devon's reaction, but I did feel her 2 hands push me away, and by the time I was on the floor, I heard her panicked shouts.
Get off me, you creep!
She barked, backing away from me. I tried to push myself up, understand what was happening. When I saw her face again, there was no love or want. Devon was scarlet, and her golden eyes flashed fear and disgust.
Jesus, what the hell?
I knew it.
Came a grumble from behind me, and strong, rough hands pulled me into the air. I was thrown against a wall, slamming my already spinning head. Shouts and curses came from the crowd, from voices I recognized. All at me. Devon continued to babble in the background, all explanations and fear.
She just came in, we were talking, it was all normal, then she kissed me. I had no idea what was happening.
It happened all at once, before I could understand. The football player grabbed me by the arms and pulled me down the stairs. An army of partygoers rallying behind him, slinging slurs and curses my way. The front door was opened, and I was thrown out, staggering on skinny legs. My head was still racked with stinging pain, but I managed to turn around. Devon was stood amongst the dispersing crowd, and for a moment, she looked at me. "What are you doing?" I asked, not wanting to believe this. "Devon!" That same pleading broke through her face again. For just a second, she looked desperate and sorry, like she loved me. And then Sean appeared, taking her by the shoulder. He threw me a scowl, and suddenly Devon's firefly eyes were wrathful.
F off.
Sean said. Devon nodded. The door shut on the party. I wish that had been it, but of course it wasn't. I had school to go to, like school isn't already hell enough. Everything I had ever done before was erased. I was only the creep, the lesbian, the girl to keep an eye on. The one who kissed Devon loving, who didn't want it. Not at all. For the first week of being pushed and whispered about, teased and screamed at, being spat on and isolated, I tried to find Devon to talk to. It's not like she was avoiding me. She was very vocal about her thoughts of me. She was amongst the crowds of jeering, with a face of hatred so convincing that several times I nearly questioned myself. Was I delusional? Had I kissed her when she hadn't wanted it? But every now and then, her facade broke. I caught her watching me with watery eyes and a pleading, begging look, only for a second at a time, but undeniable. Sometimes I saw her sat down, staring at her shaking hands, or one finger trailing over her lips. But she was never alone. She surrounded herself at all times, all angles, and every time I got close to her, more abuse was hurled. Eventually, my dad found out. I hadn't been out to him yet, but I figured he had already known. I didn't do it, Dad. I swore to him with all my heart. I didn't. He just nodded, with complete sincerity.
I know you didn't.
At least one person believed me. But it was him against a school full of riled-up teenagers, and even if he had wanted to help, he was always too busy. He tried to get home earlier, but it was too difficult. I told him, like I always had, that it was okay. I'll be fine, I told him, not believing it myself. Even the teachers had become cold to me. Everybody believed Devon, and I don't fully blame them. Because if it were me on the other end, I probably would have believed her too. Devon. I think I probably loved her, but only truly realized it after everything happened. Because the twist of my heart and the sobs soaking my pillow at night weren't because of the relentless hate thrown my way by teenagers I had barely ever spoken to. It was for the hate in her face when she scowled at me daily that seemed so real. And maybe it was real. That's what really terrified me some days. The days had turned dark from the winter, so I walked home under blackened skies. It got colder, and though the anger from most of school had mellowed, it seemed that Devon's fury had only grown. She made an effort to hunt me down, taunt me with her friends. It's like she thought that if she didn't keep up the act, everybody would turn on her. Label her the damaged, screwed-up lesbian who kissed Shamira Solomon. I was mostly able to keep it together in school and through the day until I went to bed and drowned my sorrows into sleep. But one day in school just broke me.
Always knew you were a lesbian.
Devon seethed at me in the library, surrounded by boys with folded arms.
With the way you were always staring at girls in our class. I just took pity on you for a while. Should have known you'd start off on me. You're disgusting, you know that?
I was shaky all the way home. Dad was still at work, so I was alone in my house. The angel watched me from the mantelpiece, my mother's painting. I felt that her eyes watched me from it, with deep sympathy and love. Maybe I was being desperate, delusional, but just imagining that within the canvas was somebody who loved me, wanted to help me, it was too much. I collapsed into shivering tears on the carpet where Mum died, between the gaze of this ever-present angel child. My sobbing got louder and louder, howling pain. "Help me," I begged, hands clasped together like a prayer. "Please, just make Devon stop, please." The angel watched me silently, golden staff clasped in their baby hand. I fell asleep on the carpet, only woken from my shudder-filled sleep when my dad found me lying there. The next day at school was the same again, except Devon had only gotten angrier. She screamed at me during lunch, so loudly that she had to be pulled away by teachers. Still, all eyes were on me. Disappointed glares. I ate my sandwich in silence. Later, someone threw something at me during class. A pencil, I realized. Whatever. But it went even further. When I trailed home at the end of the day, the heaviness of Devon's anger wobbling in my chest, I heard shouts from behind me. My old friends. Sean, Bianca, Louise, and Devon, of course.
"Slinking home, are you?
Yelled Bianca.
Trying to get away?"
I wanted to get away. I picked up the pace, rounding the corner. But they knew where I lived and followed me all the way. When I got to the door, I tried to shut it, but 40 fingers pried it open. 4 people, once welcomed into my house, now intruders. Dad wasn't home. I found myself stranded in the living room with no one there to protect me. But this was the end of my silence. There was no time to be a pushover. "Get out of my house," I told them, fists clenched by my sides.
You should have gotten out of Devon's room, shouldn't you?
Louise jabbed a long nail at me.
But you didn't.
Devon wanted me there. Devon laughed, sharp and bitter. That unkind laugh of hers I always pushed to the back of my mind.
Oh, F off. You know you stormed in there.
"You keep changing your story," I told her, no longer in control of my words. "Before you said that you let me in and then I kissed you when you didn't want it. Now you're saying I just came in."
Oh, shut up.
Sean cut into me.
Talking too much gets girls like you killed. You know that?
Yeah.
Bianca snorted.
You'll end up in the grave like your mother.
Like ice cold water poured down my back. My eyes flitted to Devon, whose facade flickered for just a moment under my gaze. "You told them?" I whispered.
Of course she did.
Louise jumped back in.
Told us your mama killed herself right in front of that creepy angel painting.
A jolt to the heart. She didn't. It wasn't suicide.
Probably didn't want to be your mother.
Bianca spat.
So she killed herself to get it out of the way.
I couldn't handle this. I tried to focus only on Devon, who had been silent all through the confrontation. "Devon," I said.
Don't talk to her. You've done enough damage.
Barked Sean. "Devon," I said again. "What are you doing?"
What are you talking about?
She asked, but her tone was unconvincing. There was something flickering in her eye. "You know," I told her. "You know, don't you?" Devon folded her arms, a barricade I couldn't break through.
Stop,
she said, a near whisper. I shook my head. "You kissed me," I told her. "You know it, but you're too scared of what people think."
Ah, hell.
Bianca pulled at Devon's shoulder.
Devon, let's go.
But the golden-eyed girl seemed stuck in my living room. "You're a coward," I spat. Every thought was rushing from my mouth. "You can't handle that you're into other girls, and that would be okay, you know? I could help you through that, and so could other people. But you just can't stop thinking about what other people think, and you are so afraid of being lonely that you would rather surround yourself with people you don't even care about. You would rather bury and condemn me than admit that you love me." Devon was glassy-eyed, oblivious to her friends trying to pull her back out the door.
I don't love you,
she whispered. The most unconvincing thing of all. I shrugged. "Suit yourself, but I know, Devon. You loved me once, at least. But maybe you're right. Maybe now you're just afraid of what you feel for me so much that it's eaten you up." She stared at me, shook her head a tiny bit, but said nothing. "You kissed me," I hissed, "and you hate yourself for it. You're afraid of me, Devon." For a moment, I thought that might be it, and I would have taken that. I would have been glad for it all to end right there. But that couldn't be it. Because Devon shook her head. A tear slithered down from her eye, but she wiped it away. And suddenly, her cheeks puffed red, forehead scrunched, and golden eyes burning hot as the sun.
You never know,
She seethed, shoulders shaking.
you just never know, do you, Shamira?
Behind Devon, Sean, Bianca, and Louise's eyes all flickered about. They backed away a little, but I stood my ground.
You never know
Devon's voice was loud, rattling.
when to shut the hell up!
She was at the mantelpiece before I knew it, reaching for the angel painting. Her hand shook as she grabbed it, pulled it down. Devon dared to look me in the eye as she grabbed the canvas and smashed right through it with her knee. It ripped right through my heart. I let out a shriek like a banshee, clutching at my chest, trying to find my way through the fiery, real pain I was feeling. Something gurgled in my throat, and I fell to my knees.
Shamira?
Came a voice of wavering concern. Feet rushed over to me, but only stood and watched as I sank to the floor. Blood spilt from my mouth and onto the carpet. Above me, panic flourished, and the intruders babbled and shouted at each other.
What's wrong
Call
with
an
her?
ambulance.
Shamira!
The pain rocked my head and heart, ripping me up from the inside. I was dizzied by it. I ended up rolling onto my back, staring up as the pain went on and on, burning like the sun. Devon stood with the ripped canvas. She was staring at me with faded anger and pure horror in her eyes. But she didn't move to help me as the others did. They prodded and poked me. One of them was on the phone, I could hear. All I did was lay there and think, I'm going to die on the carpet of my living room like my mother did. I kept my eyes on Devon. I think that, despite it all, some part of me still loved her. I had always been prone to too much love, for my dead mother and my busy father, for the angel and the painting, for Devon, of course. And now, love had finally killed me. I lay there before Devon as a loving, dying girl. She met my eyes then. It was nearly a moment of peace. Until, through her chest, came a golden staff, slicing her open from nowhere. Even while blood leaked through my mouth, I jolted, let out a yell through my blurred pain. The others turned and saw too, screaming in fear and horror. I tried to get up and scrambled towards Devon, who was the only one not screaming. Her mouth was hung open, gaping too wide. Her white teeth were stained red within the second as scarlet blood spilt down her chin. "Devon!" I screamed. The burning, fiery pain was fading from my chest. "Devon!" The golden staff twisted. Devon jerked and I screamed louder, still clutching at my heart as I stumbled to my feet. I grabbed onto her, trying to see what was happening and who was killing her. But the golden staff came from nowhere. A weapon wielded by nobody. I held on to Devon's shoulders and looked into her firefly eyes. But the sun was fading from her stare. "Devin, come on," I pleaded with her, despite it all. "Come on, come on." I don't know what I was asking of her. To please say that she loved me? To come back a better person? Or maybe just to live at all, even while still hating me? To live. Please. Devin, I choked. Please. But instead, Devin loving cracked like glass. Jagged gashes breaking up her body, blood soaking her school uniform, and instead of falling dead to the living room floor, she vanished right before me. Golden eyes and all. I found myself alone in the room. The others had already fled my house. I was no longer in pain, but my blood still stained the carpet, as did Devin's. I hadn't imagined it. And yet, despite the evidence under my feet, the angel child was back on the mantelpiece, the sun shining behind their black curls, holding that forever glowing golden staff. They looked upon me with that eternal love, like they would do anything for me. A huge thank you to all of my poltergeists. Alex Schaefer, Bobby Tripp, Calderin, Daniel O'Connell, Erica Warren, Forever, Shadow Blackhawk, JTX31, Marzipan, Michael Folks, Spirit Father, Stephen Swiftbird, Twisted Skipster, and Nathan Konerk. Your donations and continued support are so appreciated. So, as always, thank you. From the very bottom of my heart. I can't describe what I am. I'm human, I know that. It's not like I'm possessed by anything spiritual or I'm part alien or anything like that. It's not magic or demons or angels because I can tell it's more like some force. But there's something else there. Something incredibly disturbing.